The reason we had so many overreaching regulations in our nation is because the church complied. The church is supposed to direct the government. The government is not supposed to direct the church. That is not how our founding fathers intended it. And I'm tired of this separation of church and state junk that's not in the Constitution. It was in a stinking letter, and it means nothing like what they say it does.
I just want to highlight some of the things that Lauren Boebert said. Firstly, she said that the church is supposed to direct the government and the government should not direct the church. I 100% agree that the government is not supposed to direct the church. However, likewise, the church is not supposed to direct the government. Secondly, she made a false claim that the founding fathers did not intend that there should be a separation of church and state, which is completely not true and very misleading. Thirdly, she said that she is tired of the separation of church and state. Fourthly, she made another false claim that the separation of church and state is not in the Constitution. I believe that Lauren is supposed to know better, or at least we expect her to know better, especially about what is in the Constitution. We need to ask ourselves very, very important questions here. If we really want the church to direct the government, if we have the same mindset, if we are thinking like Lauren Boebert, which church? Tell me, which church specifically do we want for it to direct the government? Which church is going to have that honor of directing the government? With so many churches today believing so many different things, their doctrines are so different. There's something that we need to note here. If the church is to direct the government in an ideal world of Lauren, it means that the church will impose its beliefs on the government. Are we ready for that? Let's just rewind a bit and revisit our history, because it seems like we are forgetting where we come from. Did you know that there was a time in history when the church was actually directing the government? Yes, it happened between the years 538 AD and 1798. You know what? That rulership of the church over the government took 1,260 long years, from 538 AD to 1798. If it is your first time hearing about this period in history, please, I kindly advise you to check it out. It will be very, very helpful, because if we are ignorant of the events that transpired between the years 538 AD and 1798, we are more prone to make the very same mistake again and allow the church to tell the government what to do. Those who do not know history are bound to repeat it. If we want to know what will happen if the church will be telling the government what to do, let's find out what happened between 538 AD and 1798. It all started with this man, or rather I should say this king, Constantine, the Roman emperor. He had a war to fight, so he wanted to win it. So Constantine, he prayed for success, and apparently he saw a sign having the cross with the script, "In this sign conquer." He then had victory over the war, and then he credited his victory to the Christian God. That led him to convert to Christianity, and that was in the year 312 AD. Actually, the problem here is not that Constantine converted to Christianity, but the problem was that Constantine legalized Christianity. Now Constantine had the power in the church, so he could also have a say in what is happening in the church. So Constantine made Christianity the main religion of Rome. It didn't end there, things got worse. The nominal conversion of Constantine in the early part of the 4th century caused great rejoicing, and the world, cloaked with a form of righteousness, walked into the church. Now the work of corruption rapidly progressed. Paganism, while appearing to be vanquished, became the conqueror. Her spirit controlled the church. Her doctrines, ceremonies, and superstitions were incorporated into the faith and worship of the professed followers of Christ. That is from the book The Great Controversy, page 49. In the year 538 AD, the Pope, the leader of the Roman Catholic Church, was given supreme leadership over Rome by the Roman Emperor Justinian, and the Roman Catholic Church was given authority to direct the government. There was now an established unity between church and state. I guess Laurent Boebert and her supporters would have been thrilled to live during this era. Now, what happened from that year 538 is that the Roman Catholic Church started to impose its beliefs on everyone. And everyone who dared to oppose the church was punished. I mean, the church was protected by the government, by the state, by the civil authority. So the constitution, I would say that at that time, was in support of the church's decision. If the church, for an example, would decide to kill you because you are disagreeing with them, then the state will be in support of the church's decision to kill you, and it will be constitutional for you to die because the church said so. And that was the result of the unity of church and state, which Laurent Boebert today is advocating for. In the 6th century, 538 AD, the papacy had become firmly established. Its seat of power was fixed in the imperial city. The Bishop of Rome was declared to be the head over the entire church. So the state had given place to the papacy, to the church. The government gave the church authority to direct. And now began the 1260 years of papal oppression. Christians were forced to choose to either yield their integrity and accept the papal ceremonies which were corrupted and worship, or to wear out their lives in dungeons or suffer death by the most cruel torture you can imagine. So some of the people who had to fight, they had to fight even to death for freedom during this time when the church and state was united. We have people like John Wycliffe. They offered a great protest against the Roman oppression. We have people like John Huss and Jerome. They were burnt at the stake because they were disagreeing with the doctrines, with the teaching of the Roman Catholic Church. We had people like Martin Luther imprisoned for teaching against Rome. Wycliffe, Huss, Luther, Tyndale, Baxter, Wesley urged that all doctrines be brought to the test of the Bible and declared that they would renounce everything which it condemned. Against this man, persecution raged with relentless fury. The history of God's people during the ages of darkness that followed upon the Rome's supremacy is written in heaven, but they have little place in human records. Few traces of their existence can be found, except in the accusations of their persecutors. It was the policy of Rome to obliterate every trace of descent from her doctrines or decrees. Everything heretical, whether persons or writings, she sought to destroy. Expressions of doubt or questions as to the authority of papal dogmas were enough to forfeit the life of rich or poor, high or low. Rome endeavored also to destroy every record of her cruelty toward dissenters. Papal councils decreed that books and writings containing such records should be committed to the flames. Before the invention of printing, books were in few. That is the Great Controversy, page 61. This period, often referred to as the Dark Ages, was brought about by the unity of church and state. So the papal supremacy ended in 1798. When Pope Pius refused to renounce his temporal power. So Pius was then taken prisoner and transported to France by Napoleon. So those who fled persecution in Rome, they did seek for refuge in America. Among the Christian exiles who first fled to America and sought an asylum from royal oppression and priestly intolerance were many who determined to establish the government upon the broad foundation of civil and religious liberty. Their views found place in the Declaration of Independence, which set forth the great truth that all men are created equal and endowed with the inalienable right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And the Constitution guarantees to the people the right of self-government, providing that representatives elected by the popular vote shall enact and administer the laws. Freedom of religious faith was also granted, every man being permitted to worship God according to the dictates of his conscience. Republicanism and Protestantism became the fundamental principles of the nation. These principles are the secret of its power and prosperity. The oppressed and downtrodden throughout Christendom have turned to this land with interest and hope. Millions have sought its shores, and the United States has risen to a place among the most powerful nations of the earth. That is from the Great Controversy, page 441. The founding fathers did actually, absolutely intend for the separation of church and state. Do we want to repeat history? Do we know the implications of the union of church and state? Are we ready for dictatorship? Do we want to put the freedom that we hold so dear at stake? How would the modern day unity of church and state be? Today people embrace different religions. Which religion do you think is most likely to direct the government? Is the principle of majority rule applicable in this instance? What about the minor religious groups? Are they going to be oppressed by the majority? What if I believe different from what the church is imposing on the government? Would the church punish me? Would the state punish me for not agreeing with the church?